This is part 2, Ancient China for the Rise of Civilization. And we're going to talk about the Shang Dynasty. So, by the Shang period, a state system of government had been established, and this is contemporary with the Middle Kingdom of Egypt. So, state hierarchy in China was king-based. The Shang Dynasty, we know, was a closely knit kinship group whose nobles traced their descent through their chief member, the king, from the supreme deity Shangdi, the founder ancestor of their people and the ruler of the natural world. The king was considered to be the son of Shangdi. The king was head of various clans, but he also presided over a lot of ceremonies. And during this time period, again, we see a highly stratified social system. So by Shang times, and even maybe by Xia, war was frequent. And ultimately, we know that there was a professional army. How do we know this? Well, we start seeing all kinds of artifacts. So the most famous archaeologist of this area, Casey Chang, believes that the origins of the civilization in China were based in the development mechanism to get surpluses of food from farmers to support a vast superstructure of civilization. It was during this time that we had the Bronze Age, and again, we had a lot of warfare. So here you see a chariot on one side, and they think that if Mulan, who is a famous folk heroine in China, if she existed, she did exist during this time period. And here are her names in China, and if you don't know the story, watch the Disney movie, but my understanding, because I haven't seen it, is that she posed as a man and went into battle to help her people. Okay, so this was the Golden Age. A cauldron was used to prepare meat for the ancestors, so we have a lot of bronze working. And you could just read this. So we know that it was believed that the ancestors could intercede in the life of people on earth. So what they would do is, to keep on their good sides, they would put them in a special place and leave offerings of food and wine and stuff for their ancestors. Okay, many of the great Shang cities and capitals were surrounded by a rectangular city wall. One on Ao is the name of the city, enclosed an area of 3.2 kilometers. And it's thought it took about 10,000 workers about 18 years to build this wall. During the Shang dynasty or period, kings began to practice giving land within such enclosures to nobles. And then they could give the territory to other people. Capitals, though, were frequently moved after earthquakes or other natural disasters. The last capital of the Shang dynasty, and Anyang was one of them, that's famous, was established by King Zhu Yi, and Zhu Yi felt his nobles were not treating him with sufficient honor and loyalty, so he kept moving the capital. One of the most famous capitals, as I said, during this time period is Anyang, A-N-Y-A-N-G. It was founded in 1384 BC and lasted until about 1122 BC. There was no wall, but what we do know is that sacrifices were found at every stage of the construction. And here you start seeing ritual axes. So here is one of the tombs. They found 852 people. By that we mean 852 people were sacrificed. They found 15 horses, 5 chariots, 10 oxen, 18 sheep, and 35 dogs, all in this construction. Anytime anything was built during this time period, they would put in sacrifices. Usually they were thought to protect the place. Additional sacrifices were made from time to time and sometimes put outside people's houses. And sacrifices were a large part of the royal graves at Anyang. There's 11 great tombs. And how do we know that there was sacrifice? Well, we do have some records. We find the archaeological record as well. We find people with their heads lopped off, which you'll see. Now, your book talks about Anyang. Your book also talks about a few other sites in China that you might want to look at. But here you have a prisoner kneeling, probably some kind of bag over his head. And how do we know he's going to get his head lopped off? Well, here is the great decapitator god. So sacrifice was usually done at every phase of construction. So war was really important. They warred constantly. Again, they had to keep getting the sacrifice thing going. Of those who were captured and sacrificed, most were young males between 20 and 30 years old. Of course, female favorites might also be killed and buried with their masters. But the people living outside the cities lived as they did in the Neolithic. They were still farming. There was a lot of craft working. It was during this time period also that we see the development of a sophisticated calendar, because they had a complex ritual schedule, use of a decimal, base 10 numerical system, 365.25 day year. And we start seeing graphic writings. So this is where we come to the oracle bones. They have found 100,000 of these, and this is thought to be the beginning of Chinese writing. Chinese writing, let's see if this, I don't know what happened here. Anyway, Chinese writing, here's more oracle bones. Now, the fall of the Shang dynasty is blamed on the excess cruelty of its last king and queen, and eventually they were killed, outed. Here's some more of these oracle bones. Here's more of the bronze working.